Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for what is mainly kind of a preview of Sheffield United versus Chelsea tomorrow on Sunday. But honestly, there's a lot of other stuff to talk about. I'm joined by Pice. We will be joined by Charlie very soon because I do want to recap one of the most iconic games that have ever happened at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea 4, Manchester United 3. We'll talk about Pice's experience being at the game. And we also need to talk about Enzo Fernandez versus Mason Mount. What happened? Why did it get to this point? What does it really mean? Because obviously a lot of people have taken this certain ways. Like, does this now mean all the people that said Mount is a, money grabbing something? But right, essentially, because otherwise Enzo wouldn't be beefing him. Does it mean that? Does it not? We'll discuss our opinions. And of course, we will also take a little look at Cole Palmer because some of these stats that man is coming up with, there was a tweet before the season how we paid 40 million for a guy that's never scored a Premier League goal. Well, now he's on 16 Premier League goals, and he might become the player with the most successful in terms of goal contribution, goals and assists, Chelsea player in history. He's now, I think, 6 or 7 off Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and there's obviously still a fair few games to go. He's already surpassed the likes of Hazard, Diego Costa, Cesc Fabregas with goals and assists in their first season. But what makes it so much more special with Palmer is that not only is it his first season at Chelsea, it's his first real season as a professional that plays regularly. Because, well, regularly is an under-exaggeration, obviously, Chelsea. It plays all the time. But at Man City, he got a game every now and again, if that. And that was last season. So this is kind of his first real professional footballer season. And him to be doing this is unbelievable. And, of course, we will look ahead to Sheffield United versus Chelsea. An absolute must-win game, obviously. One of the few teams that actually have had worse injury crises than we have this season, which is pretty unbelievable, but they're bottom of the league. But then again, we also couldn't beat Burnley. So how sure can we be of winning tomorrow? Or is it actually that this 4-3 against Man United could be a bit of a kickstart towards the season running? Pice, first of all, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it very, very much. I do want to start with that. Obviously, I do want to get your thoughts on Chelsea versus United on Thursday as well. But I want to start with whether you think that a game like this, a result like this, and also the way the game went, the way that it finished, the explosion of emotion at the bridge, even with the manager, even with Poch, that's not brilliant, is it? I said it in our chat, or didn't I, Pice? Not particularly bothered about Havertz. So you've got 65 minutes for him. He's going to do all right for Arsenal. I always thought that. Hey, it is what it is. Jorginho, the fact that we let him go there will always piss me off. Anyway, back to some more positive things. Chelsea beating Man United 4-3, so that's great. But, do you think that could be a bit of a kickstart towards the season running? Because there's been a few occasions where we thought, this could be it. But there was, in the post-match interview that Poch gave to TNT, I thought it was very interesting the way he responded to pretty much exactly this question. He didn't say, I think it could be, or maybe, or yes. He said it should be, which I thought was a very interesting way of phrasing it. But in a way, I completely agree with him. If this doesn't make this team be a bit more like on it every game and not just every now and again, I don't know what will, really. Because obviously the managerial tactics, we've long given up on those anyway. So it is the players on the pitch that need to sort it out. But do you think that this kind of result, this kind of game, and this kind of win at the end can be a kickstart like that? Before we get into the detail of the game itself.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so, bro. But, we've been in this position before where we've had, a decent result. And then the game later, we drop points. So, let's not forget, let's be honest, the goals against Man United towards the end, one, a very, very lucky deflection. And obviously a penalty. So, without Madueke coming on and driving at that player, obviously it's never happens in the first place. And also, there was debates. Was it a penalty? Was it not? Were either of them penalties? Look, I don't really care. We won the game. It was a great experience, a great result, but we didn't play well. I don't think we didn't play very well at all. And we bottled the lead. We had a 2-0 lead. We started really well, and then we let off. And going 3-2 down at home, not until the very end of the game, I think everyone was very, very pissed off, and we're in, sack Poch mode again. And then all of a sudden we turn it around, and it's like those games are not going to happen. That very often. They're very, very rare what happened at Stamford Bridge the other night. It's very rare you score 2 goals that quickly, especially against you know, a big team like Man United. So, you know, great that we got a result, but you can't really use it as like I'm not sitting here with like massive amounts of confidence now, you know, because we won 4-3. It's like if you look at the overall game, it's like, oh fucking hell, like it was all our usual, you know, calamities, individual mistakes, lack of structure, you know, bottling leads, questioning mentality, like it's all still there. So, you know, I think we have to win tomorrow. Will it give them mental confidence? Yes, it should, absolutely. But is there every chance that, you know, at halftime tomorrow we're drawing 0-0 or losing 1-0 to Sheffield United? Unfortunately, yes, with this team, because there is major like a mentality block. You know, we don't start games as well as we should, and then we all know in the second half we managed to get worse. So, look, I mean, for you know, confidence, we should absolutely go out there tomorrow night, kill the game within 30 minutes, and you know, move on to the next game. We need to put a run together because, you know, finishing sixth, everyone thought is impossible. Now it's actually in our
now that
hand.
we beat United, it's actually
we
possible.
we put a run of results together, you know, and things go our way. You got Brighton, Newcastle, West Ham, you know, all in the mix. They're not the most consistent of teams, but we aren't either. But if you look at our quality in our team, we should absolutely be winning, you know, a lot of games, you know, more games than we have for sure.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Yeah, it's just at the moment we're just such individual brilliance, you know. But like Palmer is having a season where, you know, like I honestly I don't know if he can keep this up. Like next season, like this might be a freak season. Like, you know, don't be surprised if he drops goals assist next season, because this season isn't normal what he's doing, right? Like this is actually crazy. He's
Even the number of penalties we had, that in itself isn't normal anyway.
It's crazy. Like we just, you know, like we had Jorginho as our top scorer the other season with penalties, but at the end of the day, like it's just
he was on 7 by the end of the season. I think Palmer already has 8 now.
Yeah, it's not just the penalties though. It's just his
of course
overall game. Like, you know, that the confidence he's playing with. Like he's just on another level right now. So,
Yes.
you know, if only a few more of our players could reach that, then, you know, who knows where we could go. But yeah, tomorrow's a must win. I mean, they're bottom of the table. We got to win. No excuses.
Absolutely. It's a weird one because I haven't told you this yet, but so when it was still 3-2, right, and I was preparing the thumbnail to be able to go live quite quickly when the game is done, my thumbnail was essentially crying picture of Pochettino with a caption, "The end of Chelsea Football Club." Obviously drastically over-exaggerating, but that's honestly how I felt at that moment. I'm like, how on earth can we have again bottled a 2-0 lead against one of our biggest rivals? And I know not locationally wise, geographically wise, but still historically, especially from when Chelsea became a real force in English football, us and Man United was the rivalry at that period, right? And obviously against Arsenal, that's how it went. Obviously against Arsenal, we drew 2-2 in the end, but we were also 2-0 up, kind of cruising. To be honest, we were never cruising to the extent against Man United like we were against Arsenal, because in that Arsenal game, we were actually able to control the game, which is weird because Arsenal are miles better than Man United, but we just didn't know how to stop Man United's counterattacks, and that made it a ridiculously open game. As well as obviously us liking counterattacks as well, because that's one of our strengths too under Pochettino, the way we play. But I want to get back to you kind of talking about the performance, because I completely agree. In the grand scheme of things, we weren't good at all. Like, it was one of our... Obviously, every game's different, right? And obviously, a game against Man United is going to go differently to a game against Wolves or a game against Burnley. But even still, the lack of control there was the way 2-0 up, what Caicedo did, what Badiashile did. I think Badiashile gets off the hook a little bit lightly almost because of how bad Caicedo's mistake was for that first goal. Petrovic for the third goal. What on earth is he doing? Badiashile for that third goal, right? Like, it was a calamity, really, in particular defensively. But then obviously we turn it around at the end, and in terms of being a Kickstarter, do you think the way it went on Thursday could actually be a bigger kickstart than if we just from that 2-0 position scored a third and won 3-0? I think the way it was, the release of emotion could actually have more of a positive impact on us longer term than if we had just won that game 3-0, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, in terms of me as a fan and maybe also the team being more confident in the way we play, I 1000% agree with you. But like you touched on, that kind of mental confidence, like, I don't know, just giving you that extra edge, that extra couple of percent that you just, I don't know, run that yard more, you run that step quicker. I mean, I think the way it went in terms of the rest of the season, I don't think it could have gone any better than the way it did.
Yeah, I mean, especially because we play so quickly afterwards this game, like we should still have that in the back of our minds. And, it was an intense and long game. It was like you said, it was a basketball game. There wasn't really any control from either side. And we did expect that because, both fan bases moan about, the lack of midfield and the openness of the teams and stuff like that. So no real surprise, that it was 4-3, to be honest, of a high scoring game. But yeah, knowing that we play very, very quickly afterwards, should be like the players should still be buzzing from that victory. So it's like, we can use that to go on and hopefully win tomorrow comfortably. But it's a complete different game. Sheffield are fighting for their lives. They actually, they lost 3-1 to Liverpool, but it was 1-1 at one point against Liverpool at Anfield.
And without that screamer of McAllister.
Yeah, like it's a bit scary, So I was looking at that like, oh shit, like they're fighting, aren't they? Like they're actually, they're doing okay. So
and that was at Anfield as well.
Yeah, so we need to be careful. We're going to play a deep block. They're going to try and hit us on the counter, and we need to be clinical when we get the chances. And I'm interested to see what team plays tomorrow as well, because I think there's probably going to be some rotation, and that can be good or bad. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that it can be good or bad. I think as much as, I'm not necessarily one to be big on controversy and stuff, I think the way this one has gone, I think we kind of need to talk about it. So my first question to you, Pies, is, did you notice this happening at the time? First of all, this altercation, and then obviously the one after full time or after we made it 4-3, right? Did you? I will play little clips of both of them in a second, but we'll start discussing it first. Like I say, that's my first question. Did you notice it at the time?
What, Enzo and Mount, or
them coming together? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I saw it for sure. But I think there's one clip somewhere where I saw, and basically there was 2 balls on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think Mount put his hand to say leave. So the second ball came on the pitch because they had a throw in, and Mount was like, leave it, sort of thing. So then Enzo went and got the ball and kicked it, and obviously Mount blocks the ball with his foot. So then that's what I think pissed Enzo off. Like, I don't know if it's this, he's got hatred towards him because he left, sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe there was a lot of shit talking from Enzo, a lot of things that apparently he said, like, this is Chelsea, you C word, and all that sort of thing. So I don't know, but they were teammates. Some people have thrown up the thing that, at full time, Enzo and Havertz were like smiling and hugging, and look at the difference there. But I don't know. There's a couple of pictures. Obviously, Gilchrist posted a picture of him next to Mount and stuff like that. I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, everyone's heard different sides of the story. I don't think we'll ever know because we weren't in the boardroom. We weren't actually there. So who knows? Everyone seems to blame Chelsea, but who knows? Maybe they were asking for an absolutely ridiculous wage packet or something. Who knows? At the end of the day, maybe what Ten Hag said is right. But then, to counter that, I think, what else is he going to say? Oh, Mount didn't want to leave and join us. Obviously, he's not going to say that, is he? So,
my whole point is, there's not one part of me that believes that Ten Hag even knows even a small percentage of what actually went down. Why would Mount discuss this with Ten Hag? That just makes no sense in the first place. So why would Ten Hag even know? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with what happened with Enzo and Mount, the South Americans, they don't like the traitorship and stuff. So it is interesting. It's definitely interesting to see what happened. But
it's very interesting. I tried to look for the clip where you can see the whole ball in play first. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one of those. So I will bring up the clip of just the altercation itself. You can obviously see it here. Play sound. Stop playing sound, stupid X. Anyway, you see it happening there, and just kicking the ball away. Then they just kind of start beefing a little bit. Exactly like you said. It's just, and then obviously pictures of them used to, playing together. It's weird. I agree with you that I think the way some people have took it as, oh yeah, they clearly hate each other, and this is clearly a proof that Mount, did something wrong, and that, Enzo is fully defending Chelsea here, and something definitely must have gone on. I don't know. I just think
this is more interesting because, like he got. I know we was losing at the time, and obviously kicking the ball away. Like I can understand, like players go to head all the time. You know, it's football; they push and shove. You know, even teammates of countries do it, right? When you're in the moment, especially if you play for, like a big teams, right, in a big game or stuff, you sort of forget that you're sort of international teammates sometimes. But for me, at the end point, the fact that Enzo continued it on was more interesting in the sense of like, okay, like maybe it wasn't just about, like that kicking the ball sort of thing and blocking the ball. Maybe it was Enzo did think he's a traitor or whatever, because I just think, I mean, Enzo's not a confrontational player. Like, why would he? I just don't know why he would go to this extent if he didn't know something, or I don't know. Like, it's a bit.
Don't you think the most likely for why this happened? Do you know? Was this after the game or was this after the 4-3?
After we scored. So
and then just about before it finished, yeah. Because for me, the fact, exactly like you say, why would they all of a sudden, like, this is more than the other with the ball thing, because there was a bit of a reason. And again, it could be totally that actually for some reason Mount and Enzo don't get on. Maybe Enzo wasn't happy with the way Mount left, whatever. Maybe Enzo just reads social media too much and actually thinks what he reads on social media is true, but actually he himself doesn't, because why would he be involved in contract negotiations, right? It's not like his English is any good enough that Mount telling him before he left, he would have even understood, right? I think it's a bit more likely simply as Mount probably saying something to Enzo before, whether it was after the earlier altercation or then, I'm not sure if you guys clocked this, that chance that we had to make it 4-3 before the corner that we actually scored from. It was Mount that cleared that from, I think, Sterling trying to pass it to Enzo. It was a Mount slide tackle that got it out. I don't know, right? Was something said? I'm purely speculating. I have no idea. I just think it's a bit, if it's like this, right? If Enzo is like proper triggered and everything else, then he wouldn't be the only one. I refuse to believe that he would. And I know you touched the Gilchrist stuff. I don't know what to make of that one either. If I'm honest, like, why is he posting a picture with Mount? Could it just be could it actually be a positive? People are purely speculating whether this is taking a dig at Mount or what it is, right? But I feel like if Enzo had a serious issue with Mount going into the game already, more of the team would have done, and then it wouldn't have just been Enzo that ends up clashing. So that's why I think something is more likely to have happened on the pitch. But I back the way he stood up for him, for the club, and went about it. Charlie, first of all, thank you for joining us. With Pys initially, I did a bit of a recap on the game on Thursday. I'll ask your thoughts on that in a second as well. But firstly, I do want to get your thoughts on the. Yeah, but he was in the youth team, and obviously Mason Mount was basically the role model until he left for everybody in the youth team. Anyway, what did you make of this Enzo Mason Mount altercation and confrontation? And did you notice it during the game? What did you think of it during the game and maybe after, once you've seen a bit more on social media? What did you make of the whole thing, mate?
I didn't see it during the game at all. Too busy going mad after the win. Didn't notice it at all. I'll be perfectly honest, mate. I don't really give a shit about this. Like, if it is what it is. It's two players on a football pitch, maybe having a disagreement or whatever in the heat of the moment. I don't look at it as any more as that. Yeah, obviously, because it's Mount, it's made into a bigger deal than it would have been if it was anyone else. I get that. But yeah, I mean, I just find it interesting how all the build up in the game was surrounding Mount. I guess that's shows how far both teams have fallen off in terms of this used to be a big match that meant a lot. And the build up was dominated, and then afterwards, instead of people talking about us getting an important win and PALMER and whatnot, it's then about what's people are still talking about Mount. It's obviously I know it's a talking point. Well, it amazes me how many Chelsea fans are still so bothered by Mason Mount. He's gone now. It doesn't matter anymore.
I agree with that sentiment. I think it's a weird combination, isn't it? Because there's obviously, you've got the one set of fans that are super against Mount. Then you've got the other set of fans who are, I don't think anyone is really defending him anymore, as in, okay, we love him more than our own players. I don't, maybe there's a few weirdos, but I don't think
there's definitely a few.
Yeah, okay, maybe there's a few. But I think most of the people that defend him is more of a situation of, okay, he's gone, but let's not pretend that he left in a bad way when it mostly wasn't on him. So let's just we act amicably towards many players that have left and play for rivals, right? obviously the Lampard comparison is silly. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more to do with the fact, though, that like his goodbye message, having been here basically his whole life, his goodbye message was pre-recorded and it was read off a fucking.
That was weird. I can't lie.
That for me is why I think people don't like him. Like,
but bro, people didn't like him before that message.
No, but I think that was maybe like the turning.
Imagine he was like visibly upset in that. Like, I guarantee you, fans would have been like, "Fuck the club," like.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, but you've got to think about it, right? If he's visibly upset in that, he's already upsetting the fans of his next club. Yeah, and obviously, as much as you can say he should care about Chelsea fans,
but it's normal to be upset to leave your boyhood club. Like, I don't think other fans of your new team are going to be disappointed by that. I just don't see that. I mean, if we sign someone,
you leave, if say like your contract comes to an end, right, and you leave first, and then like you negotiate and sign for somebody else, I agree. But because he released that video, obviously we all know he recorded it weeks before, but they released that video on the day that it was announced that he's going to United. If he sat there crying his eyes out, United fans will hate him from the get-go. Now, but I also think Chelsea fans can hate that about him. I don't care. But if you're the player, you'd be an idiot to, on the day you're signing for a new club, crying about leaving your club. Yeah, because the new club isn't exactly going to think, oh, he wants to be here. Do you know what I mean?
No, but I think there's two things that turned.
Yeah, but if he didn't, then that would be perfectly acceptable. Wouldn't it?
I think there's two things that turned the majority of the fan base against him. One, as we said, the goodbye message. And I think the second thing as well, which the video of him and his dad in the changing room at United, and his dad saying, like whatever it was, home mate, home. Like, I'm not saying that Mount didn't want to go, but what I'm saying is, like, if his dad wasn't representing him, there's a high chance that he might still be in a Chelsea shirt, potentially. I think his dad had a lot to do with it. And it's clear that, his dad wanted him to go and play for Man United and whatnot. But yeah, those two things, I think, are the two things that really, got like irritated Chelsea fans. For me personally, he's gone now. Grateful for what he did when he was here. Disappointed with kind of how it ended.
Can I ask you, what was your reaction when he came on? Did you boo? Did you clap? Were you just silent?
I didn't. I just nothing. Just neutral. Like, he's like, I don't hate players when they leave. Like, obviously, at the time I was disappointed he left because, despite the fact he'd not been good for 18 months, it's always a shame to see someone that's been part of big success at the club has come through the academy. It always feels a bit worse when
months? At the time that he left.
No, he hadn't been good for 18 months, pretty much, when he left. It was at least 2 seasons he hadn't been great. It was that season.
The season before he left,
he wasn't good. He wasn't good then either.
I'm not saying he was amazing, but
but he wasn't as he hadn't been good. But like, I still feel that he could have had something. But I think, ironically, like, he probably would have played a lot this season for us. Like, genuinely, if you see how Gallagher's being used, I reckon that Mount would have been playing instead of Gallagher. Like, I think he would have played. Honestly think he would have played quite a lot for us this season. But look, he's gone. Yeah, it is what it is. Like, people aren't going to like him. That's their prerogative. That's their choice. I mean, look, whether he ever comes out and explains his side of the story, who knows? I don't know if it's really in his best interests to do that or not.
I think after this game, things will change now. I think there will start to be now plenty of United interviews for Man United, for Mason Mount. There was this report that Mount has kind of been hesitant to like give many interviews and do many like media duty stuff because of the whole how he left Chelsea and stuff. I think now with the reaction that he got at the bridge, that now changes and he now doesn't care anymore, if I'm honest. And if I'm him, I'd probably think the same. JC obviously says, come on, Laurenz, people who were at Chelsea for shorter term made more passionate parting messages than that Mount message was shit. No need to defend. I agree. No, I agree with that. My point is that I don't believe that this is the parting message that Mount would have wanted to release. The whole thing, the whole move, was a decision made above his head.
It was written for him. It was written for him, of course.
Yeah, it was written for him. He recorded it and put it out. He doesn't even, I mean, he controls it, but he doesn't actually upload on his own social media account. And people need to be aware of these things, right? Like, again, I just think that's like the things that I've heard, whether that's through Pys, whether that's through other people that I speak to, the things that I've heard, I'm like, I just refuse to just jump on the bandwagon just because we all hate him now. But there's a difference here, because I would have been exactly like you had I been at the game. I find the people that clapped him also weird. Like, there's no need to clap him. He went to Man United.
No.
Why are you clapping him? Right? Like, that's also strange. He's not fucking Frank Lampard. But the way he acted on the pitch yesterday kind of pissed me off, because he tried to put off Palmer off the penalty. He was like, I mean,
but you would expect that though, like as an opposition player.
I've never seen Mal try to put an opponent off while he was at Chelsea.
I don't know, but I think like I don't know. I think you'd expect that sort of thing. Like, now that you're an opposition player, like you want to do everything you can for your team to win. But yeah, look, ultimately, I at some point I would like, not because I feel it's necessary, I would quite like to hear what his version of events are, just from a purely like intriguing, like inquisitive point of view, to actually sort of hear, because ultimately, like, there's information out there and people are just choosing to believe kind of what they want to believe, I guess. And I don't know, I'd just be interested to hear how he thinks things happened.
Absolutely. The problem is,
whether we do or not,
his career, that will really hear his true thoughts. Even if he says anything until then, while he's still at Man United, no matter what he says, we will not be sure whether that's actually the truth.
I also wonder whether, like, anything to do with the deal or whatever, he's not like he's prevented from speaking about it for a set amount of time or at all. I don't really know, but it would just be nice to hear. That's maybe not nice, but like, it'd just be interesting to hear what his version of events are.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. But yeah, at the end of the day, the one last thing I wanted to quickly touch on, Charlie, because you kind of started it, but you don't really care, is Enzo's reaction in the game a sign that some of the players care, or do you think a bit like me that it was more about what happened on the pitch that day rather than anything previous?
I think maybe a combination of the two. I think obviously, like, winning in that fashion is going to spark that sort of celebration, release of emotions and whatnot. Whether people like Pochettino or not, I think it's quite clear that these players are playing for him and they do like him. And yeah, look, in terms of Enzo, I think there's definite leadership qualities there. It's great to see those characteristics from him, that fight, that passion, defending his team, that fighting for the badge and all that sort of thing. These are things that you like to see. Was it a direct response to winning in the way we did? Partly, but I also think that has been there at times this season, but we just haven't seen it enough. Even Pochettino, I'm not like, him celebrating that winning goal. I'm not saying like we need to see that for every single goal, but it is little things go a long way when you're trying to build a connection with a fan base. And seeing him celebrate like that does make a difference. I'm not saying, that's going to win the majority of the fans back over, that one thing, but things like that do make a difference. So, like, it's good to see that his passion is there. The same with Enzo, and I think same with a lot of players as well. Yeah,
no, I do agree, absolutely. You brought up Poch there, and I think this is an interesting point in terms of also the players clearly like him. The players are clearly playing for him. Pys, where do you stand on that discussion, I suppose? Or does the players at least seemingly actually liking Pochettino? First of all, he goes completely against what Goldberg released all those weeks ago now, and I'm not trying to sit here making Goldberg look stupid, or the opposite, saying what we're seeing on the pitch is a fake reality. I'm saying neither. But because I agree with Charlie, what you see on the pitch on days like that, I'm not sure if it's necessarily much to do with Poch, but I do think they clearly don't have a problem with Poch. Where do you stand on that, Pys? And does that not alter your thinking, but does that at all weigh up in your thinking of whether it makes sense to go for any of the somewhat limited managerial options or keeping him?
Well, for me, I'd probably go and get Nagelsmann or maybe De Zerbi, but other than that, I think everyone else either hasn't been in the Premier League or is too much of a risk. Like, I think Amorim's going to go to Liverpool, so I don't know. Let's see how this season ends, and then we'll see what happens with Poch. But the market out there is not that massive for managers, and But to answer your like question on the players, like I don't really care about that sort of thing because the players didn't down tools on Graham Potter. So, I actually think with this group, with Graham Potter, we'd probably be doing better than Pochettino. And the fact that this group is just a young group of players. Like, if there was anyone turning on the manager at their age, I think we should kick them out of the football club immediately. So, yeah.
No, I hear that. And the only thing I think about when it comes to the Serbi, it seems like obviously he's one of the candidates at Bayern. Nagelsmann is one of the candidates at Bayern. I still think for his own sanity and for his own reputation, Nagelsmann needs to reject Bayern if they want him again. Because if you're treated that way and you go back to there, well, how much of a beta male can you be? Do you know what I mean? Like, I know the people that he had issues with are Oliver Kahn and Salihamidzic, who are both sacked since, so they're not there anymore. But even still, don't be doing that. But I also have to hope that they don't somehow get Rangnick out of the Austria job, because Rangnick is doing unbelievable things with Austria. So please, Bayern, do not get Rangnick, okay? So get someone else, I don't care, but not Rangnick, okay? Anyway, just quickly, these clown comments here by Pochettino. Obviously, there's been ones that he made sound a little bit less aggressive, shall I say. He was basically saying he wants to build a connection, but not by doing things purposely to like appease the fans, but he wants to build a connection by creating a team. Where do you stand on this, Pice? Especially because you've been one of these people very adamant that he like intentionally, consciously needs to try to build a connection with the fans. I won't lie, I found it very funny how he's like, I'm not a clown. If you want a clown, go find a clown, but I'm not that. I did find that actually quite amusing from him. But what do you think about those thoughts? And especially, what do you think about him saying that after he actually did exactly what you want anyway with his celebration after?
I think it's a stupid comment, to be honest. I don't know where he's coming from. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the history of Chelsea managers and the ones that succeeded, you need charisma to succeed at Chelsea. I think, 95% of managers have succeeded here because of their character as well as their coaching ability. So I think if he claims to know so much about Chelsea's history and the standards, yet he doesn't understand that standing on the touchline and, okay, let's be analytical. Well, you're not very good at being analytical anyway.
Yeah, that's the problem. If he was at least
you might as well be a quote unquote clown on the touchline. Like, what's he on about, clown on the touchline? Since when is celebrating being a clown and enjoying the moments with the fans? Like, I enjoyed what he did. I was like, what the fuck? Like, he's actually showing some emotion. I like this. I like that he's celebrating in the Man U game. Like, I don't understand where this comment has come from. No one's calling you a clown or. Like he's saying passion isn't.
No. I don't think he's saying anyone's calling him a clown. I think he's saying people want him to act like a clown. Because to him, jumping around like what Conte did in that first game when he jumped into the crowd, that to Poch is probably acting like a clown, judging by what he said.
If you think about it though, if you think about Chelsea fans, what are your memories of Conte? One of them will be that very first game where he jumped 100%. Into the crowd, right? You've got 100%. A picture, you've got a video, you've got a moment for forever, it only goes, obviously it helped that he won the league, but if he didn't do that, if Conte wasn't the way he was, would he have been that successful? Would he have got the fans inside? Who knows? Like, probably not, honestly. History doesn't lie. So for me, don't make stupid comments like these, celebrate more, and try and build a connection with the fans if you want to get back on side. Because I'm sorry, but if you aren't going to celebrate and you aren't, sometimes going to go crazy in important games, in important fixtures, then you're not fit to be a Chelsea manager, in my personal opinion, anyway.
Interesting. Where do you stand on this discussion, Charlie? Because for me, it's a mix. Like, on the one hand, I get what Pice is saying. On the other hand, I also kind of respect what Poch is saying, because it's like, maybe because of his past, and I'm not saying because he still likes Spurs, but because there's, from the get-go, there was a certain animosity against him. That he's like, I can't just act like I love them and they love me from day one. I need to almost earn that without doing silly things. One other point I would like to make, and then I'll let you share your thoughts, is we also haven't won a lot. And we haven't won any big games, right? I think if we had more of games like Thursday, I think that would have probably happened more. And other than last season, and we had similar issues with Potter, even though Potter obviously is a very different character and regardless, but the problem is obviously it's difficult for a manager to like connect with the fans over winning when you barely win. Do you know what I mean? So like, if we had a season under Pochettino, which obviously partly Pochettino is at fault for, like that Conte season, I'm sure fans would like Pochettino a lot more purely because we were winning. And if we were winning regularly, he would have celebrated more. But my logic was always from day one, and that was one of the reasons why I was against the appointment of Pochettino, is if Poch does like a Klopp and goes over to the fans and like tries to fist bump them after a draw, or goes around clapping after a draw or a loss, even on the first day of the season, they would have booed him purely because they're like, what the fuck is this Spurs twat doing trying to clap us here when he hasn't even won? So it's like, it's a bit of like, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, almost situation in terms of trying to connect with fans. Like maybe Pais has a point if he just kept doing it over potential a few boos or a few insults from the sides after not winning. If he kept doing it, I'm sure he would have eased up. But I also still understand why he would have questioned himself. Is that a good idea of me? If I like go clap around while like they're just gonna hate me for Spurs? Where do you stand on this, Charlie?
No, I think it's important that he behaves how he does in terms of like what his character's like. There's no point trying to portray himself as someone that he's not just to please the fans. Like that's no, people don't want that. It's not authentic, and you can see right through it. I agree with your point that more if we were winning, then there'd be a lot less negativity spoken about him. Even if people don't like him, as long as if your team's winning, it's very hard to be critical of a manager. So I think if we were winning more, then there would obviously be more passion, more celebration, because there would be more to be pleased about. Whereas at this point in time, there's not been a lot to be pleased about. But look, you can look at it both ways. Like, yes, it's always nice. It's always great as a fan to see a manager being passionate and animated on the touchline. And I think these things get highlighted more when you're not doing well. Like, if we were winning pretty much every week, and say we were like fourth or whatever at this season, and Poch had been behaving the way he is on the touchline, it doesn't get spoken about anywhere near as much as it is right now. I think it's one of them that is, because we're not doing particularly well.
Sorry, Charlie, though. Well, that's sorry. He finished third, and he still never won over the fans because of the way he was. Like,
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like Sarri probably should have been given longer. I actually thought he'd done an all right job. In fairness to him, but look, I think the most important thing is that you stay true to yourself, and you don't try and do something that's inauthentic, because, as I said, like that you can see straight through that. And if fans can see him trying to portray someone or something that he isn't, then that's arguably worse than just being himself like he is right now. I think there is passion in there. I think there is, the want to celebrate and whatnot. I think that is in there. But I agree with you, Laurenz. I think we would have seen it more if we were doing better. But the fact that we're not doing better means, I mean, how many moments really can we say this season that, there would have been cause for sort of celebration in that manner that we saw on Thursday night? There's very, very few.
Wins, but imagine he started doing this when we beat championship teams.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Like last-minute winners against Leeds, Leicester, Crystal Palace in the Premier League or whatever. Imagine if he'd done that sort of a celebration in those games, and then he'd be getting battered for it. Oh, it's only Crystal Palace. Oh, why are you celebrating against championship sides in the FA Cup? That's that Spurs. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of them where it's like, damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Like,
exactly. And I honestly think, I think, Pais, you made an interesting point by bringing up Sarri. But I think you bringing up Sarri is exactly proof that it doesn't really matter what he does. That once Chelsea fans don't like a manager, it doesn't matter what the results are. It doesn't matter how they act. They will just not like them. Because Poch is an emotional guy. The problem we have with Poch is obviously that we did see him as this emotional, very much connected to the fans and manager. We did all see that at Spurs. So we kind of know that he can be like that. That's probably why fans are a bit more upset at him not doing it at Chelsea. Again, I go back to the winning thing. But with Sarri, I think he's just not that kind of guy. Like, I mean, someone said it here. Ancelotti wasn't that guy. And I tell you one thing, everybody fucking loved Ancelotti, even if he wasn't that type of guy. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. But let's not get hung up on this too long. Sorry, Pies, did you want to add something more to that?
Yeah, like back then with like Ancelotti though, you got to remember like we had the old guard. Like a lot of our fans love the players as well as the manager, but you always.
But that shouldn't be on the manager to then try harder just because we don't have players that the fans like. That's not the manager's problem.
I'm not saying necessarily like. I mean, but you had that. There was like that built-in connection, you know, with like Drogba, JT. Like
it was more like they had a team and you added managers, though, isn't it? Yeah,
but we didn't have to. I don't know how to explain. Like I don't think the manager needed to be so much of that. Like you know, perhaps back then, but with now because we've got a young team, it's like for me, I want like a leader on the touchline. Like you know, when we're losing against Man United, Pochettino did nothing. Like from what I could see, is I was watching the bench because I was like, okay, how's he going to lift this team up? You know, when we went to 2-2, he did nothing. Like I want a leader on the touchline. I want a Tuchel. I want a Jose. I want someone to lead in. I want an army, you know, on the touchline. I just don't get that vibe from Poch personally. So
no,
I don't know.
I agree with that. The only thing I would say is Tuchel wasn't like that anymore. Like the second half of the last full season he had.
No, mate, he spent loads of games just sat in the dugout towards the end of his reign.
And even Lampard,
he'd almost given up.
Exactly. Even Lampard, who's one of the most Chelsea men you can get, 95% of games he was sat there arms crossed on the bench, and you're like, well, Lampard clearly does care about Chelsea.
To be fair, though, I think that's probably more to do with the fact that he's only there for 10 games. Like if he was
no, but I'm even talking like in his first reign.
Oh, in his first reign.
Well, an issue. It's just the way it was. That's all I'm trying to say. But yeah, it's so weird for me because part of me 1,000% agrees with Pies. I want the manager to be into it. I want them to be passionate. But I try to just look at the picture and part of me just understands why he hasn't done it and why that hasn't happened. But yeah, everyone's going to feel a little bit differently about these things. And at the end of the day, I think they're just blown out to be a bit more important than they actually are. That's all.
It's not just about winning though. It's not even about like the moments the other day. It's about like the moments like when you lose the first leg to Middlesbrough, right? And the fans and the players, like I think it would be great for them to go over and you know show appreciation towards the fans, even if you take pelters for it. Like you're still like you're showing that. For me, it's visually showing that you care and you're like, you know, shit, that was bad. Sorry about that sort of thing, rather than just go down the touchline. I think there's been many of them moments with Poch where it's not just about winning. It's like in the bad situations, like how are you gonna react to that? And I just think it goes for players as well. Too many people just visually, I'm not saying they don't care. Like Poch doesn't care about Chelsea, doesn't want to do well. Obviously, he does want to do well. It's his reputation, his job at the end of the day. But it visually, as a fan, when you're looking for something and you don't get that, it hurts. It makes you feel like they don't care. It makes you feel like they've forgotten about you. Yeah. And that's what hurts when that happens. So it's not just about victories. It's about when you lose as well, when you draw a really bad game, you know, like those are arguably more important to build a connection. Because I think if he started from, you know, the very first game and he was just, I do think things would have gone differently, you know, if he was went over and clapping the fans after every game and was just a bit visually more active. I think more people would have been behind him now. Honestly, I do.
No, I hear it, and I don't even fully disagree. I think it's the tricky part is that, you know, going over to the fans when you're potentially expecting belters, like you say. That's, you can stomach that, you can deal with that as a player, as a manager, when you've also received love from those fans. But very few of our players, because of how much the squad has changed and how bad we have been since the squad has changed so much, have actually experienced that. And I think that's why I think a win like yesterday is so important, because it's important for this manager, but most importantly, the players, to make positive experiences with our fans, because then they will feel that connection and then they will feel more like bad and go over to say sorry after bad games. But that needs to be created. You can't buy 25 players and expect them from day one to love the club and the fans. Why would they? Where would that have come from? Like on a few occasions, sure, like Carney Chukwuemeka, who was a Chelsea fan, sure. Madueke, sure, maybe like understanding the English culture. But when you're buying Caicedo and Enzo and Jackson and bloody Cucurella and these lot, like where would their connection to the fans have come from? Like, why? They need to build it. But all they've experienced at Chelsea is losing and the fans being upset. So that hasn't been that opportunity. Do you see what I mean, Pies? Or do you disagree? It's fair.
I don't know. I think it matters more when you lose rather than when you win, personally.
No, 100%. I agree with you.
It's easy.
You back.
It's easy to go. It's easy to go over when you've won. Like
exactly,
it takes a little bit. It takes a bit more to go over when you've lost, but it's more.
That's why so many fans love Silva, because
but it's more important when you lose to go over and show appreciation, like than it is when you win.
And that's why I'm one of these people that thinks it's so important to keep the players that understand and love the club. That you keep
absolutely.
a Gallagher, that you keep a Chalobah, that you keep these types of players, because they're the ones that will tell the new players, the foreigners that don't understand it, because this isn't like that in every country, by the way.
No.
They don't do this everywhere. So this is how we do it in England. Great. That's how we're supposed to do it. But there's no one here anymore other than Gallagher, because all the others are permanently injured, to tell them these things, right? Or to show them these, because Sterling is a little wet wipe. He didn't go over to fans at Liverpool and City already. So how is he going to tell them? So anyway, we've got hung up on that discussion for a bit too long. I want to take it back to a much more positive conversation. And that positive conversation is Cole Palmer. What an unbelievable player. What an unbelievable season he's having. When I saw this, in terms of goal involvement in the first ever season at Chelsea, to outdo Diego Costa, to outdo Cesc Fabregas, who was in the peak of his prime, to outdo Eden Hazard, who, of course, was still young, but was still actually older, I think, than Palmer was when we signed him.
He's played more first-team football, certainly.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he was Player of the Year in France, won the league, like, the crazy things. He was already, as much as he was a young player, he was at least a somewhat seasoned professional, right? A proper, experienced footballer. That's young. But Palmer's basically never played. He hadn't scored a single Premier League goal. And now there's every chance. Okay, he's 8 off Hasselbank, so it's not guaranteed. But if Palmer keeps going like he has done the last couple of weeks, there's every chance he could even beat Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank's record here. Who, by the way, I will be honest, until I've seen these stats a few days ago, I never knew that Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was first on this list. But big up Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. But yeah, we touched on it earlier already, Pi, so I'll go with Charlie first. First of all, obviously, what can you even say about Palmer? But this is crazy, isn't it?
I mean, look,
you talk about penalties. Penalties is 8 of these. He's got 24 goal involvements. That's mad.
Yeah, I mean, look, what he's doing is exceptional. He's a very talented boy. I don't think any of us expected him to make the impact that he's made this season when he joined from City. I think myself and probably many others included weren't really sure how often he was going to play, whether he was going to be a mainstay in the team, whether he was going to be like a rotation option or whatever. But, he's established himself in the team. And what he's doing now is, I'm not comparing him to Eden Hazard. They're totally different players. Hazard has done it for a number of years, but he's similar in the sense that he is single-handedly dragging this team to victories. And I don't think that what he's doing is getting the appreciation or the credit it deserves because 100%. Of how bad we're doing as a team. If we were...
Think of the one bad season Chelsea had while Hazard was here. Hazard was one of the worst players of the whole team.
Yeah, well, exactly. What he's doing is going underappreciated. But the fact that 21 years of age, how he's already in a new environment, first time outside of Manchester in his life, first time playing, regular football, new team, new environment, all these things. And in a team that is, they're in an environment at Chelsea, which is probably not the best at the moment, a team that's not winning, a team that's struggling, to constantly turn up every single week and put in performances and single-handedly drag your team to victories at 21 years of age and not seemingly feel any pressure is quite remarkable. Look, I don't want to sort of start putting him up with the likes of, your Hazards and whatnot. I get the comparisons, I understand it. But I think the most important thing is right now, is he a better player than Phil Foden? No, he's not. Is he a better player than Bukayo Saka overall? No, he's not. But in terms of this season, he is
How
having...
do you judge that?
Based on
Foden, I think it's very simple. But
based on longevity, essentially. Like if Palmer can, because like let's be honest, like almost any player can put together one good season. We've seen it time again. Players have
very few can put together this good of a season. To be fair,
no, true. But what I'm saying is like the big telling point for me with Cole Palmer, and I think he's got all the ability to be a phenomenal footballer.
Yeah.
Is and I haven't got any doubt in my mind that he will continue to produce numbers over like season in, season out. But for me, arguably more important than this season is what he does next season. Yep. Like, because you could easily like it's hard to repeat a season like this. And I think that's what we're going to really find out, what he's made of and how good he is if he can back. I'm not saying he has to get the same numbers, but if you can be in and around the same level,
be our main guy again.
Yeah, if you can be in and around being that level of production again, then I think we're onto something. What he's doing right now is absolutely exceptional. I mean, providing Arsenal don't win the league, he should be an absolute shoo-in for the Young Player of the Year. I honestly don't think anyone else is close. Obviously, if Arsenal do win the league, I think Bukayo Saka will win it. But But
if Arsenal win the league, I mean, first of all, the problem with these votes are they're done before the league is decided.
Yeah, well, exactly. That is the problem. Do you know what also the problem is, right? Is that
surely if Arsenal win the league, Saka should just win Player of the Year, not Young Player of the Year. And I hate it when they win both. It's stupid. It shouldn't be allowed.
No, I agree. But look, I mean, what he's doing is phenomenal. And, it's very similar to how Hazard used to carry the team, certainly in I think in 17-18 when we were shit. It's just a shame that we can't defend because his efforts aren't being rewarded in the way that they perhaps should be. I'm not saying that they don't count for anything, but it's not been rewarded in the way that
it will reward him with a spot in the England squad at the Euros.
No, but you know what I mean though. It's not really meant much to the team in terms of trophies or whatever. But mate, what he's doing is just it's ridiculous what he's doing. Like to outshine a player like Raheem Sterling, for example, who's done what he's done in his career. I know at Chelsea he's been poor, but he's done what he's done in his career, was brought in and said he was going to be the main man. He's the lead forward in terms of experience and seniority. To upstage him in this way, this is the sort of thing, maybe not quite to this extent, but this is the sort of thing you would have expected Raheem Sterling to be doing, and he's nowhere near it.
To be honest, excuse me, even if Sterling did this, I'd be baffled. But the fact that someone like Palmer is doing it is even more just unbelievable, really. Because, and I'll get Pice's thoughts on this whole thing in a second. The one thing I want to say, and I don't want to play this now because there's a bit too much in-game footage. I don't want to get copyrighted. But when you see Palmer after he makes it 3-3, I think this is personification is the wrong word, but a great indication when you just watch that, what he does after, of why I think he will be great next season and why I think he will be great consistently throughout his career. Because I think he just has that kind of mentality. I don't think every player in a squad does, but I think Palmer and Enzo are two of the ones that do. Like when you watch back, like how it all happened, we had our chance, Enzo nearly scored, Mount cleared it away, we have a corner. Mount, it's the 90 plus 10th minute. We've just made it 3-3. Most players, and you could see it, most players were like, okay, at least we got it back to 3-3. Just make sure we don't bottle it again now. But your Enzos and your Palmers, Palmer, after he makes it 3-3, goes, picks up the ball, runs to the center circle. He doesn't celebrate the fact that he made it 3-3. He goes, we can win this now. And Enzo was as well like, okay, fuck, we just bottled it. It's already 90 plus 11. Run into the corner flag, hurrying up, like, we can do this. And I think, to go back specifically to Palmer, it's just the way he's like, okay, now we go again. Now we try to win again. And then obviously he demands that ball and scores it himself. Sure, it was a lucky deflection. But how many players would have shot? How many players would have tried to float across to the back post rather than shoot it? And I just think that's that intent. And I think Palmer growing up with us now, it can be a real help to a lot of the other players in the team, like a Mudryk,
it's also the ability to... Sorry, mate, to make the right decisions as well. His football intelligence is so good. Like when he spoke after the game, as you said, rightfully, a lot of players would just try and put a ball into the box and hope for the best. But, even in that split second, he receives the ball and his first thought is, I'm going to have a shot, just get it on target. There's loads of bodies in there. It might take a deflection. It's just that decision-making and that, calmness in thought process at such a young age, in such pressurized moments is equally as impressive as the numbers that he's putting up as well.
100%. And I mean, there is a little bit of selfishness in him, which I do think he needs to work on. But I do also think a part of that is how bad the other players around him have been. So when players around you don't really get the job done and you are the one carrying, I understand why you are in some situations thinking to yourself, okay, no, I'm not going to pass this now. I'm just going to try and shoot myself. I get it, but it's still something that he can't let himself become too selfish and be a bit too big-headed because he's the guy now. But genuinely, because of the Man City school he got, only winning is enough. I don't think that's why we have to worry about that all too much. And honestly, after Cole Palmer, we should see if we can't get another one or two players out of the City Academy, because clearly we don't want to use our own academy. So at least make sure we get another one.
Well, we've got Lavia to come. He was from there.
True.
Not directly from there. Not directly via Southampton. But mate, City, people talk about Cobham being good, and it is good. Mate, City's academy is fucking good as well.
City's academy is now what Chelsea's was 10 years ago, when we were by far the best. They are now by far the best.
Yeah, I don't know how well their youth teams do. I don't know how well their academy teams do or whatever. But in terms of quality of players they have produced some very good ones. Palmer, Foden, Rico Lewis, Lavia. Those four pretty much all within a couple of age groups of each other. That's a ridiculous talent line.
Absolutely. I do also think that the stability that they've had with the same manager plays a part in this too, because
absolutely,
if you have the same manager for the whole time, you can kind of trickle it down into the academy the way you want to do things to.
Yep.
Because obviously Guardiola, the manager, can then also think, okay, this is important to me for players. It would be good if they were already once these young players come to the team, it would be good if I don't have to teach them everything we do, but they're already kind of doing similar things in the academy. There was also, when Conte was here, all of a sudden the academy started switching to 3-4-3. So they were doing the same thing as the first team, which makes sense. Very few managers do that nowadays. But obviously, the longer a manager stays, the more they can be implemented as well. Pys, speak a bit about Cole Palmer, because these stats, and I can bring it up in a second as well, being top goal scorer in the league, mate, it's just unbelievable. I know it's partly because Haaland hasn't had the best season. I was injured for a little bit as well. But even still, to be 2 off the top goal scorer in your first Premier League season, as not even a striker, in a team that's dreadful. I know we've now gone up to 9th because Brighton dropped behind us a goal difference after losing 3-0 to Arsenal. But it's just unbelievable, isn't it, Pys? It's just ridiculous how he's this close and how he could even have the most successful first season ever in terms of goals and assists. It's unreal.
Yeah, it has been unreal. Like Charlie said, though, I think next season's where we're going to see, if he can get even, because I think this level of production is going to be, and by the time he's finished, it could be some insane numbers this season, but already is. But it's going to be hard to replicate that next season. So if he can kind of be in our top 3 players, he's still got that level of influence on our games and stuff, then yeah, that's when really you can be oh shit, we start putting him in these debates, with your Fodens, your Sakas and that sort of thing, because they've done it over a long period of time. But him this season has just been outrageous. Tomorrow, and by the way, the players know as well. It's the players know he's the guy, they know he's the one that's you give the ball to him. Even our manager said it, you give the ball to him when we're struggling and he'll try and create something or try and score. And I like that bit of arrogance he's got about him as well, because you're saying he's a bit selfish, and I agree sometimes, but there's so many times in the game where he can have an assist and he does make a really good pass. Against Man United, he had one where I think Enzo shot, then he had another one out wide to someone else who shot, and it was he does pick out some really good passes as well, and he's got he's two assists off the leading assister in the Premier League, I think, at the moment. So he's on for the Playmaker award still. So it's not just goals; he's getting assists as well, and he could have had so much more. So yeah, it's just he's got a bit of everything really. He's quite a unique player, tall, but he can dribble, he can shoot, he can pass. He's just quite unique. You know, he's not the quickest, but he's still relatively quick. Like, you know, when he took on Dalot against Man United, it was like completely pieced him up twice. It's like, it is crazy, like, to be honest, how like well-rounded he is. And obviously City play a major part in that because of how they develop players and that type of thing. And the mentality is the most important thing. Like, I remember watching an interview with him after he scored the goal in the final for City against Sevilla. I think, was it the Club World Cup?
Oh, Super Cup.
Yeah, Super Cup. Yeah, Super Cup. That's the one. He scored the header, and he was a bit sort of like. I remember thinking at the time, he's a strange character because, you know, like he didn't really seem that excited or like happy or anything. But they asked him, like, you know, sort of what does it mean? He was like, yeah, good to get a goal, obviously big game sort of thing. But it was nothing like, you know, like, I mean, I remember at the time I was like, you know, that's a bit of a strange character. When you look at it though, it's the mentality.
Yeah, he's not going to do a John Terry and jump in the crowd to celebrate, is he?
No, like he's like,
That's not
it's like that bit of arrogance about him. Like, I like it because we need players like this. We don't have enough players that, you know, think, okay, I'm that guy. I'm gonna take you on. I'm gonna score a goal. You know, I'm gonna get the ball. And it's worrying because I think, you know, in the game yesterday, one of my tweets I was ready to draft is I was like, had it drafted for when we was going to lose, and obviously we won. But I was like, there's not enough players in this team that when adversity hits them, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this. You know, like this. You know what I mean? I'm going to take responsibility now. I don't like this situation. Maybe mentally they're feeling that, but on the ball and when it matters, I don't think we've got enough of those players in our team. So, you know, Palmer is one of those, and that's why I salute him so much because just mentality is there, and yeah, just really, really happy with him.
100%, 100%. I do want to finish it just with that question, and I know it's a tough one, and I know both of you will want to say, give me at least another season to judge, but I'm asking you the question now anyway. And I'll start with you, Pys. Do you think that Cole Palmer can reach Eden Hazard levels at Chelsea? And when I say Eden Hazard levels, I don't mean dribble like Eden Hazard, because he's obviously a different kind of player. But Cole Palmer is clearly and most definitely more goal output driven than maybe Hazard was. So, but I'm more talking bigger picture. Do you think he can reach those levels, or do you think that's too much of an ask, no matter how good the first season has been?
I don't think so. No, I think Hazard's probably the greatest player that's ever played for Chelsea, in my opinion. So no, I would say no.
Fair enough. Charlie, how do you see that? Do you also class Hazard as the best ever Chelsea player, or is that still Lampard?
In terms of talent, absolutely the most talented player that's ever played for the football club.
It's tough to judge Zola, I guess. First of all, because I'm not sure about you, Charlie, but I didn't really see him play. And we also didn't see him in his pomp, right? Because obviously he came to Chelsea a bit after his prime. So I'm not sure if Zola, talent-wise, could rival Hazard. But yeah, go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
But yeah, no, Hazard, talent-wise, absolutely. Look, I'm going to say no on Palmer. Hazard was the best player in the Premier League for a number of years. He's one of the best players in the entire world. And look, I'm not saying that Palmer's not good, but for me to sit here and say after less than one season he's going to hit those levels, I just can't say that. I think he can be a very, very good player for us, but I can't see those Hazard levels being reached, because that was in conversation of being in the top 3, top 4 best players in the world. And I don't see that at this point in time. Could be wrong, though, further down the line. But right now, no.
Fair enough. I do probably agree, if I'm honest. I just don't see it. It's that talent. But at the same time, it's like the way football has just gone away from your Hazard-type players and gone more towards Cole Palmer-type players. So who knows? Maybe he's going to win us a Ballon d'Or. I doubt it. He's probably going to go to Real Madrid and win a Ballon d'Or. But Cole Palmer, Real Madrid. I mean, he would suit them. But also, imagine a kid from Manchester in Madrid. That is quite a funny thought. But yeah, big up Cole Palmer. Like I say, I agree. I don't think he's going to quite get there. But, you know, maybe just that level below Hazard. Who knows? It all depends on how long he stays, how fit he stays, and what happens to the rest of the team around him. Because it's all well and good having, 24 goal contributions in a season. And at the end of the day, we care about trophies, not goal contributions. So
exactly.
But that's not just on him. Go on.
Look at like Bruno Fernandez's numbers for Man U. They're absolutely incredible, but they haven't been very successful trophy.
Yeah, I'd rather Cole Palmer be on like 10 goal contributions this season and we actually win something.
Yeah, obviously. But if he only had 10 goal contributions, we wouldn't have won something.
Well, there's that as well.
So, if the rest of the team were performing, that would be fine. But unfortunately, we need him to perform currently. But yeah, I think enough Cole Palmer chat. And I think it's about time we go into talking about the game tomorrow. And on that note, an update from Pys. I think that was even before we have now gone into 9th and goal difference. But Chelsea can go 2 points behind Manchester United with a win tomorrow. And if United lose to Liverpool, which obviously there's every chance of that happening tomorrow, a win would mean we stay 9th, but go 2 points behind West Ham and 1 behind Newcastle. And then obviously we have another game in hand on Manchester United. If we win that as well, we could theoretically actually overtake Man United. And honestly, even a week ago, I was saying we need to stop talking about 6th. Let's be happy if we get 7th.
Do you know how annoying those 2 dropped points against Burnley are now? It's just like, it's so frustrating.
Or the ones against Wolves, or the,
but the Burnley ones 100%, because we'd be 2 points closer to them, and actually we'd go level on points with them if we win tomorrow, if we'd beaten Burnley. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, obviously we take on the team in last tomorrow. Burnley were in 19th when we played them. So, Charlie, this also being an away game, I asked Pys this question before you joined. Do you think that this result on Thursday against Man United can be a real kickstart to the season and make us perform on a bit more of a consistent basis? Or do you think there is still every chance in the world that there's another silly 1-1, 2-2, 1-0 loss, 2-1 loss at Sheffield United tomorrow, even though they're 11th bottom, and everybody kind of smashes them?
Oh mate, there's every chance that we could slip up in this game. Said it too many times. There's been too many false dawns after results this season. You would expect us to go here and win, but these are the sort of games that we struggled in this season. We should have beaten Burnley. Like Sheffield United, we have to go there tomorrow and treat it as if we're playing a top side. We can't turn up and just think, oh, this is done, we've won, and we can just go through the motions. Like, we can't do that, and we can't be a side that gets a reputation of only being up for the big games. That's going to get you nowhere in a season, because there's more games against your run-of-the-mill teams than there are against the big sides. So if you can't be up for these sorts of games, then you can forget doing anything decent over the course of a season. So that's the most important thing. We approach it in the right mindset. We approach it treating them with respect. This is going to be a difficult game. Sheffield United, yes, they're bottom and they're not a particularly good team, but more recently they have played slightly better. They've got a 3-3 draw against Fulham, which they probably should have won. I think they drew with West Ham as well. And yes, they lost at Anfield, but they actually played okay. They concede loads of goals, so I don't see us having a problem scoring. It just depends defensively. Are we going to be a shambles? Are we going to make a load of individual errors? You just don't really know. But look, I can absolutely see this being a potential banana skin for us. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I do agree, unfortunately. I do agree. As we go into talking about the team now, I would personally today like to pick our team. And my idea would also actually ever so slightly changing the formation. I'll ask you guys' thoughts on this in a second. Before that, just quickly, in terms of availability, just to inform everybody, it's a bit unclear whether Ben Chilwell could be involved.
I reckon he'd be benched, though, at best, if he's been ill and not really played.
Yeah,
At best, I'm not sure if he's fit, I think he's bench.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially because, some people would have said Cucurella is the worst player in the world after the United game. But Cucurella is doing an all right job, but it's not like Chilwell was particularly great beforehand anyway. So it's like...
he's not doing any worse.
No, exactly. So, just put him on the bench and don't overdo it again. Don't injure him again. Don't, bloody kill his lung by just, playing him while he's fucking ill. That wouldn't be a particularly useful idea and thing to do. I don't think we picked up any new injuries against Manchester United as far as I am aware. But what should be mentioned, I think Caicedo and Nicholas Jackson are 1 yellow card away from a 2-game suspension. And obviously, we've got Arsenal coming up soon. So is there a thought to not even play these guys to make sure they don't get booked? With Jackson, you'd think you're a striker. Just don't get booked. It's pretty simple. But the fact that he is on 8 or 9, whatever he is, for a while. On the one hand, he's been on it for a while, so he can control it. On the other hand, he wouldn't be this close to a 2-game suspension if he could control it. So it's a tricky one. But first of all, guys, so my idea, I'll just make it simple. My idea is to drop or rest, whichever word you want to use, Caicedo. Play Enzo as a single pivot, as a single 6, and then play 2 8s off Gallagher and Chukwuemeka. That if you want to play a 4-2-3-1 and have Gallagher next to Caicedo and play Carney as a normal 10, whatever. I don't care. In the reality, it will be a bit of like a 2 8s then in the end anyway. But for clarification, to make it a bit, because people will say, oh, but Gallagher next to Enzo doesn't work if you put it up like that, because they don't think as far in game that obviously won't be like that anyway. So that's why I just do it to this. What do you think about this idea, Pais? I'll just put it to you out there first. Also, if you want to, on this note of potentially dropping Caicedo, maybe speak on him and his mistake as well.
Yeah, it was obviously a terrible pass. Nothing more you can really say about it, to be fair. It was not near Badiashile, and Garnacho was clinical with the finish, so it's, annoying, but thought he recovered fairly well from it. But in terms of tomorrow, I don't mind doing this. Yeah, I think it'd be perhaps silly to play both Enzo and Caicedo. If Caicedo doesn't play, does that mean his card goes, or does it still whenever?
I don't know when it resets.
I actually thought it's the 1st of April, but I don't know if it differs. Maybe if you got the 5 yellow suspension, if you then will always be,
I don't think with so few games left, I don't think this resets now until you've had the ban.
Probably doesn't.
Exactly. I think maybe because he had the suspension for the 5 yellows, I think maybe then you can't get past this point where it doesn't count anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No,
because
I think that's it now for this season.
Because if you don't get to 5, you only get 1 game suspension when you reach 10. But if you got suspended after 5, you get a 2-game suspension after 9. So I think that's kind of like the difference. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not even just resting or dropping him for that reason, but it's one of the reasons that also make it.
I mean, it's a costly booking, because if either of these get booked, they miss Everton. All right, Everton at home, not a disaster.
Is it even Caicedo? Am I mixing something up? Is it?
No, it's Caicedo and Jackson.
Because Gusto was actually on the pitch, and someone was talking about, had the ref also booked him, he would have been suspended for this game tomorrow now. So I'm not sure, but it's random things I've seen on Twitter.
He was booked anyway in that game, and he's available. So I think that was just not true. But
because then it would have been a second yellow, and it would have been essentially a red. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, look, if either of these get booked, they miss Everton at home, which, okay, is probably not a disaster, but a big one. If either of these are booked, they also miss Arsenal away. And for that game, we do need them. Both of them. So
very urgently.
Everton at home, you could probably get by without one or both, but certainly Arsenal away, you wouldn't want to be without Caicedo or Jackson, given...
You could have almost argued they should have got themselves booked against United to miss to miss Sheffield United and Everton, and definitely be back for Arsenal.
Yeah, there's also that trail of thought. But yeah, these guys need to be careful now, because we don't want them to, at this stage of the season, if you get a booking missing 2 games, it's really not helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Vic says here, if a player gets 10 yellows in a season, they'll miss 2 matches regardless of when they receive that 10th caution. I'm not sure if you copied that somewhere or read it up somewhere. Maybe they have changed it. I feel like it used to be different, but maybe it's just changed. But all right then. On the goalkeeper, Pais, Petrovic obviously made another mistake. In my opinion, at least, for the 3rd goal. I don't understand what he's doing on that outside of the boot cross from Anthony. He's essentially stood exactly in front of Garnacho. If he just took one more step, he could have probably done something to the cross, because Garnacho was so close in front of him by the time Garnacho first controlled it, and then, or did he play first time? I think controlled it with his head and then chipped it, didn't he? So it's a mistake in my opinion. Not as big of a mistake as the one against Burnley, but a mistake regardless. Now, we don't know if Sanchez is fit, because he was supposed to be fit, but then wasn't on the bench against United, so who knows? But do you think that now these 2 errors, is there now a conversation to drop Petrovic, or does he have enough credit in the bank that even with these 2 errors, we shouldn't be currently at least entertaining or questioning his number 1 status?
Petrovic is my number one personally. I think he should stay in goal. If anything, I was more disappointed with the Bruno Fernandez header. I don't know how he got beat from there personally, but yeah,
Wrong-footed, isn't it? But
yeah, I just think from that angle, Bruno shouldn't be scoring that header. It was a great header, but yeah, that was my only sort of qualm with that game from Petrovic. But for me, he's the number one. I think he's more solid than Sanchez.
I agree completely. Charlie, first of all, thoughts on the goals? Do you think he did something wrong on the third goal? Maybe on that Bruno goal? Neither.
I'll be honest, mate. I haven't even watched the third goal back. So I mean, in real time,
I understand.
At the other end, I couldn't really tell in real time. Yeah, look.
Yeah. Let me tell you though, if you watch it back, you're like, how on earth does Petrovic end up so close in front of Garnacho but still not do anything?
Well, maybe, but for me, still, I think like overall from his body of work, like maybe a slight mistake for the Burnley header. Like he's done more than enough to be the first choice for the remainder of the season in my view, and there's no point making a change right now.
100%. I agree. Wonderful. Let's go to the centre backs then, and I strongly advocate a complete change of the centre back partnership. I have seen
another
enough.
one.
Yeah, no, get rid of. Never play these two together again. They're shocking. They don't understand how to play football.
But like in theory, though, they've played so much football together.
In Monaco's worst defensive season in fucking years.
They should at least know how to play with each other, given they've played together.
They should, but Yeshua has forgot that he's a defender. He thinks he's a bodyguard nowadays. Because we can snake Caicedo all we want, by the way, for giving that goal away. But Yeshua is running next to Garnacho basically for the whole time. And he could have tackled him outside the box. Okay, if you get it wrong, you get a red card. But the latest in the box, you fucking try. Because even if you don't get the ball, penalty. So still probably a goal. But because it's in the box, it will be a yellow. So you at least tried. Instead, he just walks alongside him or jogs alongside him for 20 yards? And does nothing. Pissed me right off. And then he cost us the third goal as well. So Badiashile absolutely out the team. You guys can obviously disagree, and if you both agree on the same, then you outvote me, and it's absolutely fine. But for me, I would play a combination. This is the left one. What on earth has happened? I would play Chalobah and Thiago Silva. I know that obviously won't happen, but this is my team, right? So I'm taking both of them out, and I'm playing these two because I think these two got their chance after Burnley again. And so badly ruined it again against United that to me, I'm not saying every game they now need to not play, but no, like I've had enough. I've had enough. I don't want to see this centre-back partnership again. So I want to change it up. I think it's outrageous that Silva isn't playing anyway. And the fact that Chalobah came on for the last minutes for Dizazi, that was a very confusing substitution. Can I just quickly get both of your thoughts on this, by the way? Obviously, the Gilchrist for Gusto, people will cry about it, but at the same time, Gusto
I kind of understood it, managing his minutes. Yeah, but I mean, the Sassy one, I mean, there's been no reports of a knock or anything. I actually thought, for what it's worth, they both weren't great, but Badiashile I thought was worse than the Sassy. So
no, I agree. I thought it was weird as well that if he took one of them off, that he did choose Dizazi. I don't know, Dizazi's maybe a bit more reckless and a bit more rash. So maybe that was the choice. I don't really know.
I'll be honest though, mate. I really don't think there's an awful lot of difference between the centre backs at this point in time. Like Silva was obviously, I put it this way, like on sort of, I don't think he'll play for the club again. I'm sure he'll play in like one of the last games of the season. But I think genuinely, I don't see him getting back in the team. If he wasn't coming on, at that point in time in that game, then he's not featured once since he's come back from injury.
I agree. But can I just? Well, I said this in the last stream already. The weird bit is, remember that Palace game in which he got injured?
Yeah,
that was after Bell Silva's tweet. So he still played in that game, then got injured, and then hasn't seen the light of day again since. But Charlie, by the way, I agree with you. I'm not sure who this Poch is going to pick, but I know he's not going to pick Silva. I know. But for me, you should because and just one more thing: 6 games in a row now, we've conceded 2 goals, and in that last one, 3.
Yeah.
Thiago Silva didn't play in any of them, so you can't be telling me he's worse than the other ones. Absolute lie. He's absolutely not worse than any of them.
But ironically, the person who's come out of this well is Colwell. He hasn't played in any of these games, and I think I know Silva's not played in any of them either, but Colwell, I think his stocks have probably gone up slightly,
100%.
and he's not even played.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
look,
Well,
for
I mean,
me,
what would your centre back partnership be? Just what you would pick, not what you think Poch picks, Charlie.
what I would pick, it's difficult. I mean, I know they were dreadful, but I'm a firm believer in just in continuity at the back. I think it's really important. I mean, we've changed defensive partnerships so many times this season.
I would argue changing to Chalobah Silva and keep that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no.
I
I get what you're saying. I personally, for me, look, I like Trevor Chalobah, but I don't think there's an awful lot of difference between like him and Disasi or him and Badiashile. I know Chalobah's not made the mistakes that Badiashile has made this season. I get that. I personally, I would probably leave it the same, but ultimately, there's not really an awful lot of difference between the options at this point in time, apart from the fact that Silva does absolutely give you that leadership at the back. But other than that, I think footballing-wise, there probably isn't an awful lot in it anymore.
Yeah, but I feel like we've not even seen Chalobah and Silva together in the back four, have we? So we don't even for sure.
No, we've not seen it.
Chalobah will leave, Silva will leave, so why play them? I get it. But by the looks of things, we will try to sign Diamonde in the summer, who will cost a lot of money, which makes the whole Osimhen thing even more silly nowadays. But so that means if we sign him, it will probably be Diamonde and Colwell, and neither of Badiashile or Diazazi anyway. So what benefit is I know they're going to be at the club, but they're not going to be the starters next season, I don't think. So there's not you can't even use that argument for me. But let's see what Pice says, and then we see if there's an even ground or whether we just go with what it was in the last game. Pice, where do you stand? Do you agree with me? Like change them both because they've been terrible. Only change one of them. How do you see it? Or keep them?
My back two would be Silva and Badiashile. I think Badiashile is our only proper left centre back right now. I know he's not playing great, but it's only a few months ago that everyone's saying he's one of the best signings of the Todd Bowley era. So I'm not giving up on him. I think he's just going for a bit of
saying that, but yeah.
I think he's just going for a bit of a dip. He's my guy. I love Badiashile, so yeah, I'm not giving up on him.
Okay. Because you also picked Silva, so now we have two choices of Silva and two choices of Badiashile. That means, in the end, in this team, we will have Badiashile and Silva. Because, that's how it goes. I find it a bit ridiculous. I know I just let my cat inside from outside. And as you said, you would pick Silva and Badiashile. I said out loud, obviously I was muted. I said, what? I couldn't quite believe that you actually wanted to pick Badiashile again after that horror show. But fair enough. I also, in a way, respect sticking by them. I do agree he's a good player, but what I said last year is hold your horses, guys. He's played like 10 games. Yes, he was good for these 10 games, but hold your horses. Now, this season, he's had probably about as many bad games as he had good games last season. But the point is now, he's now not shocking. And last season, he shouldn't have been called world class. Neither of those things is true. And we need to just see how it continues. He's probably going to be a good centre-back. That's always going to be good at passing, but that's always going to have defensive issues because he's terrible in the air, even though he's massive. And he's seemingly scared of tackling. So those are two bad combinations for a centre-back. But his passing is maybe even better than Colwell's, or at least like around that level in terms of passing. I think he's one of the best that we have. But yeah, regardless, let's move on because we do want to wrap this up at some point. The centre-back, the left back and right back, I kind of picked themselves in it.
Yeah.
Unless anyone is saying rest Gusto, because obviously he came off a little bit injured against Burnley and then played anyway in the last game, and it's 3 days again, so there is a case we made to not play him, but I'd probably just start him.
We've got a whole week until our next game. We don't play till the following Monday after this one, so
yeah. Well, yeah, that doesn't help us much if he gets injured tomorrow, though.
No, it doesn't. But it's
it's just playing for like an hour and then bring Gilchrist on and have the hope that we're comfortably ahead by then, and then it's fine. That would be my course of action. I assume you agree, Pice?
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't be surprised if he put someone else at right back, but yeah, these would be my two if they're fit, for sure.
Fair dues then. We thought, well, I'm not 1,000% sure if you actually agree, Charlie. Sorry. But I would leave Caicedo out.
No, I agree on that front.
Very good. To some extent, to not punishment is maybe the wrong word, but take him out. He was clearly very upset, and I there's part of me that also kind of wants to play him again to give him the chance to redeem himself. But the position on the pitch that he plays that can't really happen. He's either going to play a decent game, no one's going to notice, or he's going to make another error. Really, do you know what I mean? Because he's not going to like score the goals. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's probably better off just leave him out. Maybe even for Everton as well. Just saying. And then look from there. But yeah, let's just do the midfield as a collective. Is that the right one now? I assume. So who do I want the right one to be? Gallagher makes more sense because he's more often towards the right, isn't he? And then Chukwuemeka. I hope he shows up here. He does. With his old hair. I will play this midfield three. I'm also, by the way, I just want to say, I'm not 1,000% sure if Chukwuemeka is necessarily fit to start, because obviously was injured, then came back, then got a knock again, and then came off the bench twice. Not sure if he's ready to start, but if he is, I would start him and I would start this midfield three. If he isn't fit, then I'd play Gallagher, Enzo, double pivot, and Mudryk as the 10. If Chukwuemeka isn't fit. But yeah, hoping and assuming that he is, this would be my midfield three. Pys, would it be your midfield three too? Or would you do Gallagher next to Enzo and Mudryk as 10 over starting Carney?
No, I'd start Carney, but as a 10, so not a 4-3-3.
Yeah, I'd go 4-2-3-1. I mean, it's much of a likeness. Like those three are going to play for me personally. So
you prefer it like this, okay? Yeah, it's like I said. I just seen already so many people on Twitter again talking about it, but Gallagher next to Enzo doesn't work. So I'm like, okay, then I'm just gonna play them, in the midfield three. Then, like that was kind of my
I'd have, no, you changed it. I was gonna say I'd have Carney as the 10.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't mind that either. Tomatoes, really, whether you call it this, because Gallagher will push up and Enzo will stay deep more anyway. So really very, very similar. But fair enough. If you both go with this, that's what we shall go with. What about the front three then? Charlie, I'll ask you first.
Palmer's picks himself. We know that.
Of course.
And Jackson's going to play down the middle. I think that's pretty much a certainty.
So no thought also, because again, we're obviously doing our teams, no thought for you at all to like not play Jackson to make sure he doesn't get booked?
No.
Okay.
And then the left hand side, like personally, I would probably continue with Mudryk. I know he didn't have a great game against United, but he had
a decent game still. Personally.
He wasn't awful. But then part of me also feels that like Madueke maybe deserves an opportunity, given he did make an impact from the bench. I know it was a small amount of time. So I can see the case for him, and like he would be deserving. But I think
what is that, Madueke? Yeah,
yeah. But
how would you play Madueke? Because Madueke is very left-footed, and we've only ever seen him play on the right. So
yeah, no, I know.
Madueke on the left seems a bit crazy. So I mean, I get what you're saying. I also see a case to be made to start Noni, but I feel like then you'd have to play Palmer as the 10 or up front.
Yeah, I'd probably leave it like that.
Yeah, it would be my front three as well. I would pick those. Honestly, if we did predict it, I think tomorrow Sterling starts because, I mean, I think it's more likely to win the lottery than it is Pochettino starting Mudryk 3 games in a row. So purely on that logic, I think it's going to be Sterling. But Pys, what would be your front three? Obviously, you're a big fan of Noni Madueke. It's just the problem with him and like him playing in the same position as Palmer is obviously a bit of an issue. But you could change your mind and put Palmer in the 10 to play Noni at right wing, I suppose.
See, this is where it really helped if we had another striker, wouldn't it? Because then we could put Jackson on the left, Madueke on the right, Palmer in the 10, and a different striker up front. But we can't really do that because we ain't got another striker. So, why can't you just leave Jackson up front, play Gallagher, Palmer in the 10 and Madueke on the right? Well, because I want Carney to play.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so it's difficult. This would probably be my attack, but one thing I will say, Mudryk has to fix up his shooting and his finishing because it is so bad right now, honestly.
I mean, it would have been his best opportunity would have come if Palmer wasn't selfish and played him in, but didn't.
The Man U game, I don't know if Charlie agrees, he annoyed me so much, Mudryk, honestly. Like his end product was so bad against Man U, in my opinion. Apart from when they played the ball to Cucurella, If Sterling had that game, he'd be getting pelters. Honestly,
no, I disagree. I said this after the game because obviously I saw your tweets and me and Connor were speaking about it on the stream, and we were saying it seems like we have different reasons for why Sterling annoys us. If you're saying if Sterling had this game, you'd be annoyed by him. Because if Sterling had this game, I wouldn't be annoyed by him. But maybe we just have different things that annoy us, which is absolutely fine.
really, I think if Sterling hits that shot into the side netting, people go crazy.
No, it was a bad pass from Jackson. That's why he hit in the side netting, because he had to take another touch. If it's a better pass,
everyone always goes on about Sterling's decision making, but then they say nothing about Mudryk when he makes a bad choice. It's just.
But what should he have done instead? Do you mean he should have crossed it?
He should have slowed down, touched the ball, and then played it back in the middle. Like he's just
but
too.
If you slow it down, then the guy might just poke the ball away from you because someone was running right next to him, right? So,
in my opinion, he's too erratic at the moment. So. I don't know. I'd stick with him because I've been one in the past to say like he needs to play for his bad games, and he does. But so
what rating would you have given him against United? By the way, just as a question.
What rating?
What rating out of 10 would you have given, like normal player ratings? Would you have given Mudryk against United?
Probably like a 6.
That's not bad at all. I feel like we gave him a 5, and I was like, oh, he was decent.
All right.
Just because our overall game was just terrible. That's what.
I don't know. Maybe I just have high standards for him because I know what he can do. But
maybe
it's just like. I need to stop watching training videos because every time he shoots in training, it goes in the top corner, and then it gets to match day, and he just like has brain freeze or hits it in the shed upper or something. So. Yeah. I don't know.
Maybe I didn't know two not awful efforts. Obviously, the one that got slightly deflected and nearly like dropped in at the back, and the one that he forced a decent save from Onana. But I hear it. I mean, Charlie, what did you make of Mudryk? I mean, I know you touched on it. He didn't have his best game.
I thought there were frustrating elements of his game. Absolutely, I thought he was all right. I didn't watch him and think, Jesus Christ. He's been awful. Like
to be fair, Pi says he would have given him a 6, so he didn't think he was awful either.
He wasn't. Was it one of his better games? No, but he was by no means dreadful.
Yeah, I still just think since this international break, he just looks more confident. And I know he's not everything's going to come off, but that's fine. Like look at Palmer. Not everything comes off for Palmer. I'm not by any means trying to say Mudryk is anywhere near as good as Palmer. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's plenty of games where Palmer tries a lot of things and very little comes off, but he keeps trying. And that's what I like that Mudryk has done against Burnley and against United. He keeps like doing things. Well, in recent past, it's been like he does 2 things a game, and otherwise you never even see him.
But it's also easy as well, isn't it? Like as a young player, particularly if you try something and it doesn't come off, and the crowd get on your back a little bit, it's very easy just to retreat into your shell and take the safe option. The fact that he keeps trying. That's commendable because it's also easy just to like think, oh shit, I tried that, didn't work. Crowd got on my back a little bit. I'm just going to play it safe now. When I get the ball, I'm not going to run. I'm just going to knock it sideways, or I'm going to play it backwards and recycle possession or whatever. So I like the fact that he actually tries things and tries to make things happen, and he's a forward-thinking player.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I also agree with Asian Aku's comment here saying the different reaction between Sterling and Mudryk is because Sterling is like 29. I think is he already 30 now? Maybe 29 is right. On 325k a week, and Mudryk is 23 and doesn't even earn 100k or earns around 100k. So I agree.
We can't be double standards though. Like
that isn't a double standard. They earn very different. They have very different roles for Chelsea. They have very different levels of experience. You have different expectations of them. Just like saying if you put Alisson in goal, you'd expect the same from Petrovic as from Alisson. No, you don't. Obviously not, because you understand they're not, first of all, not as good, not as experienced. You know, I maybe agree with you. The wages shouldn't make a difference, but the age and experience.
All I'll say is I had to delete my tweet up because I got so much abuse. That's how much people defend Mudryk, and it just annoyed me because it's we can't criticize any players that our fans like anymore. It's really
I think it's okay to criticize, but because you said if Sterling did this, I'm like, yeah, but I wasn't a big fan of that tweet of yours. And if you just said Mudryk was frustrating today, fine. But if Sterling has played a lot worse than today, like Mudryk didn't mess up anything huge for me at least. But that is kind of what really people got on the case for Sterling, wouldn't you say?
I just felt like decision making and stuff like he needs to do a lot better. Like I think every time Mudryk gets on the ball, you think something's going to happen, and then it doesn't, and that's literally Raheem Sterling, and people pelt Sterling for it. So.
And I never think anything happens when Sterling has the ball. Maybe that's the difference. But yeah, no, I do hear what you're saying, and I do even agree that the decision making does need to get better. And sometimes not even the decision making. Sometimes he has good ideas, but then the execution isn't quite the way it should be. But again, he's 23, and I know 23 is actually not young, but he's played very little in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, he's played some at Shakhtar, but at a very different level to what we're doing here. So I think that's why I let him off more for bad decisions, because you are very young. That's exactly what experience gets. Like, one of the biggest effects, in my opinion, experiences has is making your decision making better, because you learn from what to do in what situations. Otherwise, you're just going on instinct, right? Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But the more experience you have, the more likely I think you are to make the right decision. At least.
How old is Caicedo?
22,
21. Maybe he's turned 23 as the season's gone on.
No, I think he's 20. Yeah, he's 22, I think.
So is it just price tag then that people have a guy like Caicedo?
Yeah, of course it is.
No. Caicedo's problem is that he costs us goals.
No, but
if Mudryk passes the ball to Garnacho the way Caicedo did, trust me, Mudryk is getting destroyed. But he doesn't do that.
You can say Mudryk costs us goals in the fact that
he doesn't score that, but not scoring is very different to passing under no pressure to the opponent, tuning up, and essentially doing what Sanchez did against Arsenal.
Killing attacks as well, though. It's not just scoring, obviously.
No, it is, absolutely. And that's fair. It's still a criticism valid, but it's not the same as doing what Caicedo did against United. It's not the same thing.
I know, you just said about, like, the older you are, the better you make choices or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So can we not let Caicedo off because he's young then after that mistake?
No, 100%. And let me say this. If Caicedo was 28 and would be doing this, I would be screaming, sell him immediately. But because he is young, I'm saying, I still firmly believe that Caicedo will be a good player for us. Give him a bit of time. But that doesn't mean the error he made wasn't bad. Do you know what I mean? But if he was older, like Sterling, I would be screaming, sell him immediately if he had, did some of the things Caicedo did. I'm not sure if you think that's unfair then, but yeah, I don't know. But there's the obvious element that all of us have players we slightly prefer. Slightly, you, for example, really like Madueke, right? When a lot of people would probably not quite agree with the same liking for him. For me, maybe that's Mudryk, but, hey, we're all different, innit? So at the end of the day, we did our team now. Poch will probably start Sterling anyway. So let's see how that one goes. On the last bit, because I know, Charlie, you said you only had until 9. So sorry for keeping you a few minutes longer. But
all right.
Finish it off for me. Score prediction. What do you reckon tomorrow? Just as an FYI, Pys, big up yourself. You predicted Chelsea to beat Man United. I mean, you were very close to being wrong, but you were right. So big up yourself. But yeah, Charlie, what do you reckon tomorrow? In prediction, you probably have to go for a win, but you really
I think so. But I think that this will be a more difficult and a lot tougher than people perhaps expect it to be.
Yeah,
I'm going to go for a narrow 2-1 win.
Oh, Charlie, I was going to go for the same.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be close. It really wouldn't be surprised if we went a goal down or Sheffield United drew level with us or whatever, and we get a late-ish goal or something. I think it'll be close. So I'm going to go 2-1.
Fair dues. Pys, I know Charlie has now stolen your prediction. You're going to stick to it, or you're going to think of something different?
Yeah, I was going to say 2-1.
Yeah, no.
It'll be closer than people think. Hopefully we smash them, but I don't know. It's an evening game. They're fighting for relegation. It's fighting for survival. So, yes, I don't know. I think it just might be more difficult. Obviously, they'll probably play a deep block as well, which we don't do too well with. So, might be quite a narrow one if we do win.
Yeah. I think this one has a good likelihood of happening as well, because we just cannot defend to save our lives. So I think 3-2, good chance of that happening. I would say if Thiago Silva and Chalobah play, 2-0, simple, easy. If we keep doing Dizazi and Badiashile, then probably 3-2 is more likely. I'm gonna actually say 3-1. I'm gonna back us to use this positive experience of the Man United game to actually have have a really good performance. A bit like maybe that Villa away. Obviously, Villa are significantly better than Sheffield United, or maybe Burnley away, like one of those types of games. I feel like we could have one of those tomorrow. I'm optimistic. Let me be optimistic for once. I've not been optimistic much this season. So yeah, I'm going to say 3-1. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we wrap this one up. Before that, though, please do check out Charlie's channel, Blue Brother CFC. You can see it on screen. The ad is down in the description. Please check it out. Subscribe to him immediately for all the wonderful Charlie content. And of course, do the same for Pys. LondonsFirst.com. Link is as always down in the description below. And of course, check out Pys' Twitter for all his other... I always forget where it is that you stream. So just go over to Pys' Twitter. He has all the important links there. Check that out. And that would be wonderful. Pys, if you want to shout it out, obviously, please do.
Yeah, playback.tv/Chelsea Central we're called.
There you go. Don't tune in after games. All the other times, tune into Pys. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button. That would be massively appreciated. And once again, I can say up the Chelsea and upwards and onwards rather than backwards and downwards. So that is wonderful. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.